Welcome to the Gen Z Journey, where we work with you through an entrepreneurial lens to build a wholesome perspective on life and build both our business and personal dreams together. Join our community on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Gen Z Journey. So, hello and welcome to another Gen Z Journey podcast. And today we're on another guest episode, and it's on the theme of kind of mindset is where we are over these next 3 weeks. And our first guest on this mindset series is Ron Pickarski. And so I'm going to let him just introduce himself quickly now.
Okay, I'm a vegan culinologist. I work in the area of food science and culinary world. And I was born and raised in the country in Petoskey, Michigan. Was raised Catholic, loved food, was raised in the restaurant business, and that led me to eventually become a chef. And the sidebar is I became a Franciscan first. I really felt a call to be a Franciscan monk, which is in the Catholic order. St. Francis is considered the patron saint of the environment and lover of animals. And little be known that I would become a chef because my parents were in the restaurant business, and I told my parents I didn't want anything to do with the restaurant, even though I was working in it and cooking in it. And so when I left home in '68 to become a Franciscan, joined the monastery, I was over 200 pounds when I jumped on the scale, and that kind of led me to decide that food had something to do with my life, with my health. And so that kind of led me to be food being my ministry, so to speak. I became a Franciscan brother, not a priest. And that led me to go to culinary school after theology. And shortly after graduating from culinary school, I graduated as a meat cutter. And shortly after that, I became vegan for health reasons. I was over 200 pounds. I smoked a great deal when I was young. I had bronchopneumonia twice, almost died from it. And I realized that I needed to do something to take my health back. And being a vegan was part of that. So that kind of inspired me. So here I am with all these classical French skills, as you can appreciate, Joe, and I'm a vegan. So where do I go from there? It's 1976, you know, it's like there isn't soy milk, and I had to make my own tempeh, and it was hard to even find tofu. And here I'm classically trained, and I'm trying to figure out how do I connect these two. So that was the beginning. And when I was in culinary school, I had this experience. Culinary Olympics was taking place in Germany, and I came back, and I was in Chicago. And my chairman of the culinary department basically told me I should go down and take a look at this presentation at the Drake Hotel. And I went down, and it was a gold medal presentation on pastries. And I looked at that and said, you know, someday I'm going to the Culinary Olympics. And when I became a vegan, I said, now I got a reason to go to the Culinary Olympics. And that became a platform for me to basically promote vegan food, because this was 1980, remember, and I decided to go to the Olympics. And you kind of know where vegan food was back then. It was hardly even on the radar screen. So when I went to the Olympics, the first question the competitive chefs were asking me, what are you doing here? Well, welcome to vegan cuisine. Yeah. So anyway, then that, you know, that was the beginning, but that was as a Franciscan. And then as a Franciscan, I had this vision for eco cuisine. And I was consulting and traveling around the country as a vegan chef, as a monk, and working at different restaurants and catering and everything. And that led me to see the void that wanted me to create this company. And there are companies like Christian Brothers has Christian Brother Wines. I figured, well, why not create that? Well, my order said that's not going to happen. You know, the legal counsel said you're not going to do that. And so I had to make a choice after 23 years in the order. Do I follow my dream, or do I stay in the order and the safety net? Because everything is taken care of. I mean, I was very comfortable there. I could just cook for the months and had an easy job, but I just dropped it all and walked away from it. And I continued competing in the Culinary Olympics. I did it 5 times.
Wow.
From 80, 84, 88, 92, and 96. 96 was really a special year because that was the first year they had a vegetarian category. All those other times I was competing as a vegan against meat, chicken, fish, everything. It was all there. And I was right in the middle of that with my food and standing up to it. And so in 96, they had the first ever vegan category, a vegetarian category. It wasn't really vegan, but a covered vegan. And out of that, I took my first gold, which was in the first ever vegan category, out of the 7 medals. So that was how I culminated that. But while I was there, in my last interview with the Boston Globe, I was in Boston at the time, I said, when I come back from the Olympics, my dream is to take what I've done at the Olympics and put it on America's table. And that's where Eco Cuisine evolved, because I saw that void from traveling. And so Eco Cuisine was a vision to teach chefs how to cook, but to also create those products that they want to cook with. Because the one complaint over all those years I was doing dinners across the country for different hotels and events was the food is expensive and it's very labor intensive. So how do I challenge that? So that's where Eco Cuisine's products and that piece came from.
And I just wanted to jump in on that. Joe, could you just comment on, I mean, I wasn't actually aware, Joe has spoken to me about it before, obviously, but I wasn't aware of what the Food Olympics was. And I was, when Joe told me about it for the first time, I was like, what is that? Not many people from particularly my age group will have heard of what the Food Olympics is. So Joe, could I just bring you in on that? Can you summarize what is the Food Olympics and how monumental is it of the fact that Ron here went 5 times and placed many times that he was there? How significant is that?
This is like really significant, especially in the culinary world. I mean, this is unbelievable. 5 times to go to the Olympics, number one. If you go 1 time, you're doing very, very well. To go 5 times is unheard of. And so, Ron, maybe you can explain too exactly, and this will come into mindset. I mean, the self-discipline and the training that took and the dedication is just unheard of. And for, again, 5 years or 5 times, no, excuse me, 5 times. And don't mix that up. 5 times is not 5 years. To do 1 Olympic, how many years there, Ron?
It's it's every 4 years. And,
Correct.
but after the Olympics, I take a year off, and year 2 was to get started on the next one. And it was putting a program together, looking at the evolution of food, how developing these products as vegans, because keep in mind, there wasn't much to work with then. And so it takes about 2 years of real intent. My team comes together, and I rent a kitchen, and I bring them all together 2 or 3 times in the course of the year. And then I bring in judges to tear the food apart. I'm in Boston University at the kitchen, and all my team is they come in on a Friday night. We go over the program. Saturday is producing all the food. Sunday is plating it and then getting a review. So I bring in a master chef to give it a review, and he just tears it apart. And my team is looking at that, and it's like, it's the discipline, the personal discipline, the passion, but it's also being connected to where the food is going, what the judges are expecting. Because, in sports and stuff, they have, when you're doing a high jump or something, or a backflip or whatever it is on the gymnastics, you got to do it perfectly. It's not good enough just to do it. You got to do it perfectly.
And so, and are there separate categories? So, like the actual Olympics, you've got the 100 meters and you've got the 1500 meters. Is there categories within that in which they separate food?
Yes, there is. That's a good question, because there's different categories. There's the hot food cold, which is hot food prepared that would normally be served hot, but is served cold to present for the judges to judge. Then there's the cold buffet. Then there's pastries. And then there's centerpieces. And then there is the hot food competition, but you have to be a national team to get into the hot competition. And that's producing food for 100 people. in the morning, and then they serve that, and then guests can come in and buy a ticket to experience that dinner. It's very inexpensive, and it's really innovative food. But one of the things, so there was all those different categories, and I competed in the cold and hot cold and in pastries for the 5 years that 5 times that I competed, and I took 3 bronzes, 3 silvers, and that final gold.
Wow.
But the other piece of that is the team in the discipline. You have to have a team that's completely disciplined. When I took a silver in '92, it was a silver because my team wasn't fully connected, and that's on me. I didn't have there was a couple of people in there that were good, but they didn't have the passion. They didn't have the fire for that excellence. So in '96, I spent most of my time just on the mindset of getting the team right. I realized I got gold food. I just don't have a gold team. So I need to get this team to that space. I mean, I had a lot of good members on my '92 team. I had a gold medalist master chef on my team. He was excellent. But there was a few other people that. So in a way, in the '96 one, what was really interesting in that for me to close it off, because I knew I needed to go back one more time to get my team right. And I had 2 programs. In the first program, I won gold here in the States with it. It was really good. But they were judging really hard, and they only gave me a bronze. So I figured when I was going over there that I might do a second program. And that program had never been fully completed. I never really did it and showed it and had it reviewed. I just decided, okay, I'm going to shoot from the hip over there. But I had an excellent team. And you could have heard a pin drop in that kitchen that night. You could have heard a pin drop. And that food on a scale of 1 to 10 was a 99.9 on a scale of 1 to 100. Number 10 is a perfect score, and that's the gold with the clover leaf. We got a 9.9 on that program that we'd never done before. Mindset. Everybody was there. I could hear them say, we got to win a gold. It was about winning. It wasn't about anything else. It was about being perfect. It was about having that. That was my epiphany in competition.
Real quick, walk us through. Walk us through the days of competition. How many days is it to compete?
It's usually about a week, and when we compete, it starts. I start in the morning. My team starts in the morning about 7 a.m. and they work all the way around the clock, and then they present at 7 a.m. At 7 a.m., the food's got to be on the table ready for judging. So you go 24 hours.
Yep.
And then in this particular case, we had about 6 hours break. We went over to see what we won. We won this gold, I should say bronze, and we came right back and went right back to work. So we took about a 6-hour break, and then I don't know if I even slept that day. I mean, I was wired. When you're on that, you're on adrenaline. It's just like that's that moment. You spend 3 years for that moment, and I sat there and watched, for instance, the Taiwan Culinary team, and they had this beautiful pagoda made out of oil icing, and they had to ship it over from Taiwan, and they had set it up, and it was part of a pastry demonstration, part of their program. And as they were setting it up, it had been fractured a little bit. And just before the judges got there, the whole thing collapsed.
Jeez.
Yeah, the whole thing collapsed. So all of a sudden, they're out of competition. That easy. So it's
4 years gone in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and one time my food was left on the Tamarack in Boston. It was supposed to be shipped over by the airlines, and they were just a little heavy, so they pulled a pallet. It just happened to be my pallet. So my whole team's in Frankfurt, and I have no food. My program is operating in the U.S. So those things happen, even no matter how well you plan, no matter how well you do things, stuff happens. Murphy's Law isn't always full effect, but it's having a mindset that, okay, what do I need to do to get it here? That's part of the reason also that I didn't win a gold medal, I should say my team didn't win a gold medal.
If I could interject, on behalf of Gen Z, on behalf of America, on behalf of all the listeners, we congratulate you for your, honoring and representing America. And, our hats go off to you. And now we're capturing a lot of things that people don't know. I'm sorry. They don't know this side of the world on it. And we'd like to have a big shout out, right, Rio? And,
Absolutely, yeah. Love to definitely huge shout out for that. I mean, I'm even if people don't know what the Olympics are, just from what Ron has described there, in terms of what you have to go through to compete in a competition like that. I mean, just completely hats off to you, and thank you so much for representing the US in such an amazing way. And I think people can really appreciate that, going 24 hours to present and really preparing genuinely 3 years for that one moment, I think is incredible. So definitely thank you for bringing that up, Joe. Really do thank you for that. And one thing you kept bringing up on that was your team's mindset and your mindset as well. So that's a kind of the next question I wanted to ask you regarding your background is and it's the thing that struck me when we first spoke is just how much of a wise mindset you have and how you can speak with such clarity. And so what I wanted to ask you was where did this mindset develop for yourself? Where did that begin and how did it kind of develop? What were some key influences on that journey as you were developing your mindset and your very entrepreneurial and hardworking mindset?
Yeah, for me, it was growing up in the country, being raised Catholic. There was disciplines in my life that I had, as a young child. But I would have to go to Stephen Levine, who wrote the book Who Dies. He picked up on some of Helen Kubler-Ross's work. He's much more, I would say, advanced in it. He said one of the greatest tragedies in the human life is we don't get to know the best friend in our life, and that's ourselves. And that was, for me, what was going on in my early mindset. And I was kind of in that culture, but I hadn't really connected with it. And when I joined the order, I was craving for it. And the order, and not knowing that sometimes we want something in our life that we don't know we want, and we're making choices for it. And I kept making those choices. And those choices led me, as a Catholic, to become a Franciscan. But then I realized that when I shared with you about eco-cuisine, the Franciscan really wasn't about it either. It was the step. It was like a booster. Religion's like a booster to spirituality. Religion's not a landing pad. And I think that that's where the sadness about religions today is it's so dogmatic. So in a way, for me, being a Franciscan and being totally encased in that, absorbed in that, is where this connection with myself started coming out, and I began to realize that there was something. Then I started really working on my relationship with myself. There were points in my life when nothing was going on, and I was just feeling this intense pain. This intense pain. It was almost like being reborn. Nothing was going on. It's like, where is this coming from? And that was sort of where I was struggling, and then that's where my connection with myself led to what I'm doing right now. Because once we find our voice with ourselves and we connect with ourselves, and I can only speak for me subjectively, I began to realize what my really calling was with everything I was doing, from ministry to, because food is my ministry. St. Paul says it calls for us to maintain our temple upkeep. Our bodies are the temple of the Spirit, so vegetarianism is temple upkeep. So it's a very spiritual thing for me, but yet it's very temporal. Food affects every sense in our body: taste, smell, sight. And as D.H. Lawrence said, art, the essential function of art is to change the blood, and the mind will change in the weight. Well, what does food do? So for me, food helped me change. Wow. It wasn't just being vegetarian. It wasn't a dogmatic thing. I mean, I'm a vegetarian, but I cook meat for my lovely wife because she loved it. I didn't marry her because she's a vegetarian, even though she was when I married her. Sometimes tease about what happened to this relationship. But she needs to eat some meat, and she eats a little bit of meat. And just to give you an example on that, I don't want to get way off the question, but in her situation, we went in to have our blood work done, and she eats bacon and cheese, but she eats a lot of fresh fruits and produce and vegetables and grains and stuff. Our blood work was the same. She had the same cholesterol that I had as a vegan, and she had pretty much the same similar blood work. So what does that say? So it's not just about the food, it's about the spirit behind it. So that whole thing was leading. So as I was sharing it, Mike, answering your question kind of long-windedly, that whole diet, the Franciscan piece, Stephen Levine, just making this connection, that all brought me to this point of where I'm at right now. So it's caused me to ask these questions that go beyond the realm of our universe. It's like, where did God come from? What is the meaning of my life? You know, it's not questioning the existence of God. God either does or doesn't exist. I just want to spend my life asking those questions, not trying to define the answer. So living the question is what life is about. It's not about, oh, I got this answer. I know what a perfect diet is. I know what this is and that is. And no, we don't. We think we do. But the more we open ourselves up to it, the more we evolve in our relationship with ourselves and what we're doing.
If I could ask something along the mindset and along with going backwards with you a little bit, and that is, how do you prepare your mindset, especially through, I'm going to say, through those Olympics when you had to push your way through? You knew, I mean, not one Olympic, not two, not three, not four, but five. And what kept you when you go like, oh, and you kind of, where was the mindset to push it again? How, I mean, I think that's just incredible.
It's an inner voice. It's a passion. There's something in me saying, I got to do this. If you ask me to define what it is, again, you can't define these things.
Okay.
But you connect. But if you connect it to yourself, you just know you're supposed to do it.
Just know it. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's the same thing with my company and my product. And it's like, I know what I'm doing is right with them. You know, in creating this concept, this feed scratch concept, and everybody wants to open up packages and stick them in the microwave and stuff. I'm focusing on learning how to cook. It's an art form, and I want to bring cooking back into it. I don't want it to be, you know, buy a burger, a vegan burger or something, but buy this product and you can use it in all these different ways. So it's a mindset to connect with that art form with myself and through myself with that art form that I'm supposed to be working with and understand what I'm supposed to be doing with it.
Sorry, just something I wanted to say on that is just that what you were just describing a minute ago, as well as that beautiful intimacy that you share with food, is that like you take all those life experiences that you were talking about and you realize it summates in food, and it really, that's where a lot of meaning lies for you and where you can do your ministry through. And to me, that's incredible to hear, particularly at such a young age. It's what I identify with doing this podcast, for example. I feel like I can convey myself through it a lot as well, and obviously I'm still learning. And also another thing you highlighted in that is not focusing on that end goal. You know, like, it's good to have goals, it's good to have targets, but you're talking about how the journey of that self-discovery, of asking those questions that are bigger than yourself, is actually the thing that's so exciting. And I think for a young generation, who I would say is not taught that, definitely not through school, and I mean, some parents would definitely, but in general, we're not taught that, and we're very much based on end goals, results, and immediate gratification. Definitely, that is such an important thing for us younger generation. It's something I've begun to really appreciate, is that just that journey, and that along the way developing those different emotions and those feelings of, like you said, being reborn. So I can definitely identify that and really advocate what you're saying there. And something I wanted to touch on within that as well is the fact that once you enter onto that journey, is that you really don't stop for a long time. You know, it's you constantly learning. And something you highlighted actually just before we even started this podcast, when we were just preparing, was how you are now still on a huge learning curve with everything that's going on. And so I'd just like you to just talk a little bit on that. It doesn't have to be too long, but just is that your experience of it? Do you just feel like you're constantly learning, and it's provides you with something new every day?
Yeah, well, just to give you an example, and that was the product that I developed. It's I don't know if you've heard of Hampton Creek, but they developed an egg product. It's a vegan egg scramble, and I had a customer that asked me to develop that. I thought that's going to be easy. I know how to work with hydrocolloids, which are like carrageenans and stuff. It took me 7 months and 225 tries to get that right.
Wow.
I had PhDs in hydrocolloids that couldn't figure it out. And I'm saying, and I'm doing this? It's like, pull it in. Just, somebody's got to give it to me. And it happened. And I created this egg product that you can do everything that you do with an egg except separate the yolks from the whites. And I can even use it to bake with. You can make a white cake by just using that powder in it. And I developed that. I mean, I don't want to say I in an ego sense. It's all of the energy of all of the wonderful people that bring it together, that work with me on it. But I had to pivot that. So when you ask about learning, there's that element of food that the more I learn about it, the more I realize I don't know. I just know ways. So part of my life now is creating the platform for future culinarians to pick up on and run with. So part of it is being the elder that's teaching the younger generation how to work with these foods in the way that I do, and to bring cooking back into the kitchen with whole foods. Vegan foods. I'm talking about all elements of it. But that learning curve, then I'm doing my own videos, and there's the whole nutrition piece, and there's just being connected. Now, I realize in this whole journey that after where I'm at right now, my final phase in this is actually creating the vegetarianism as a cuisine. Nobody, it's always looked at, it's like vegetarian burgers and this and that, but nobody defines it as a cuisine. It's more like a special diet that doesn't have meat and dairy and eggs in it. It's actually a cuisine now. It's evolved to that. It was that in the beginning with the Greeks, but it's evolved to that. So my final journey, which will probably take another, after I transition from eco cuisine, either put it into a foundation or whatever, I want my next project that's going to take about 10 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars to literally create vegetarianism as a cuisine, just the way French cuisine is. Universal mother sauces that are made with vegetables that taste like the traditional sauces we eat, things like that. And I've got all of the components to that. But to answer your question, I think it's a little long-winded, but the answer is I'm on a learning curve that's like going at a Mach 3. And I'm kind of wondering, can I just go back and do something I've done before? But it just keeps going. But then that's the fun part of it all, too, because I'm always learning. Every day is a new day. And every time I learn about something, I never came so close to quitting as I did with that egg. I mean, I was, my wife would say, "What are you doing tonight?" "I'm working on the egg." That was what it was for 6 months. That's what it was for 6 months. I mean, we take time to watch a movie and stuff. I mean, we get together, we have our quality time. But that was working on the egg, And I got close to that point at number 70. I was close, but it took the other 180 times or whatever it was to get it right. But, yeah.
There's just I mean, my question plan for this podcast has gone out the window. Just the passion that you have, for the culinary industry and for the food, and the passion you place behind it, just it absolutely fascinates me and excites me. Inspires me to and I hope people will take this from it as well. Is like, obviously it doesn't have to just be the culinary industry. It's what fits with you and what you can really convey yourself through, but it just fascinates me to hear you speak about something with so much passion, so much drive, and to see as well the positive impact on the people that you have around you. You always talk, you constantly have a group of people around you striving towards a similar goal that you are. And to me, there's nothing better. And do you find, for me, entrepreneurship is a huge amount about bringing a group of people together to create a vision that you have, right? And to create a vision that's bigger than yourself. And do you find that through vegan foods and through eco cuisine, do you find that is the case for you? That is your vision that you're creating, and you're bringing people in to create that vision?
Yes, I with there's different areas of it. There's the publishing area where I did my book. There's the food side of it. And then there's also the philosophical spiritual side. So I'm kind of working in a lot of different areas. But with the food side, just to use that, I'm working with a lot of very passionate ingredient companies. I'm working with a lot of passionate chefs. One of the things I needed to do is with the Olympics is align myself with master chefs. And so I got in with, and there was an organization called WAC, the World Association of Chef Societies. I don't know if you're familiar with them or not. Anyway, they're the ones that are sort of with Ika Hoga in Germany with the Olympics. And so they have a lot of master chefs, and so I got those on board with me. And just to give an example, I was doing a presentation in Nashville. I was using a hotel there and had Master Chef Holzer with me. And so I said, 2:30, Chef Holzer, be in to do the thing. He comes in at 2:30, and I said, I need 5 more minutes. And he started watching with me and tells me, shoot. 2:30 means 2:30. That kind of discipline. I mean, it was just, it's the way he is. And I love it about him. That's where you win medals. That's that discipline. But all the people in the Olympics that I worked with, and as I was sharing with you about my team, when I put the right team together, the perfect team, I got the perfect result in an almost miraculous way. Well, yes, and I've got really great ingredient companies. These people, I call them up. See, I never got a degree in food science, and I'm a food scientist. So all that came through osmosis. You know, I was just working with these people, deciding I was going to do that, and working with these people. Oh, I call up and say, I need a carrageenan. And they said, what do you need it for? High acid, low acid, high shear, low shear, heat, cold set. And this goes to, they have people that have PhDs in carrageenans.
Wow.
And so I'm talking to these people. Every element that I go into, be working with flowers and bakery, there's people just like that there. And when you're totally immersed in that society with people in the food, and then of course I'm working with master chefs who are totally immersed in the classical cuisines and in that culinary discipline. So I'm dealing with that on one side with the culinary, and I'm dealing with the PhDs on the other side with the ingredients, and all of this is just kind of incubating with my spirit. So there's that element that's just wow. You know, that's I kind of have to pinch myself every now and then. But you don't realize it though when you're in it. If you're passionate about something, as one master chef said to me, if you love what you do, it's not working for you. He said, do you love what you do? And I said, yes, for the first 60 hours of the week. After that, it's work. And all fairness, because I love what I do, but I end up working more than 60 hours. And when I can't get the weekends off, it's like, you know. But I love it though, because I love it, it's okay. If I didn't love it, you know.
It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle, but I think for the mindset though, and working with these people, you're going to draw the people your mindset creates. If you're really passionate about what you're doing, and you have any sense of integrity around it, you're going to draw the right people to the table.
And there's no question about it. Surround yourself with better people than you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I love. And even people that don't have a lot of culinary experience, I want to know what they know. There's a lot of people that don't have a lot of experience that come in with the great ideas. You know, it's like this one wise doctor said, when you're green, you're ripen, and when you're ripen, you're rot. You know, if you get to that point where you're think you know it all, then you're not absorbing.
Very good point. That's like open-mindedness. Yes? Very good point.
You could have the best team around you, but if you're not open to listening to what they're saying, then there's no use to it. And another area, probably the final area before we begin to wrap things up, Ron, was just you spoke about the different elements to food and to your business, and you talked about the philosophical kind of side of things. I'd love to go a little bit deeper into that just before we finish, and just just give us that. I'm very interested in philosophy and kind of those bigger questions that we can't necessarily answer, but we're just on a journey with. So what would you say are maybe three bigger questions in yourself that you've asked yourself over your years, and what has been some. Yeah, what are those three questions? I think is the
One of
question
them,
to ask.
one of them is, I think the most basic one is, who am I? Because that is the question that kind of leads me to connect with my incarnation on this planet. Is there such a thing as reincarnation? What is my purpose here, if there is? And I believe that there is. So that element kind of helps me understanding who I am, helps me understand a little bit about what I need to do in my life. It helps me connect with my being and my DNA, which is obviously with food. And as I shared earlier on, I never wanted to work in food. I told my dad I just didn't care for working in the kitchen. So here I am. So how did that happen? That happened with my connection, asking that question and asking, what is my purpose in life? Who I am leads to my purpose in life. So that's the crucial piece of it. And then the other, and that.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to jump in on that as well, on that question of who am I? I know, just for our listeners, I watched a video the other week on that very question, and it was a motivational video, I think, but it was a guy talking about that question and how life changing it can be for you. So I'm going to put that in the description of this podcast, just because you brought that up, Ron, and I think that would be applicable as well. But I just wanted to just pause it there, just so the listeners could note that's going to be in there. But please do continue.
Yes. And so anyway, that kind of led me to what I'm doing, but what, in the sense of my spirituality, I began to ask a lot of questions around the existence of God and dogma. What we believe, dogma is opinion. A lot of people base their lives, they're taught something from their early childhood, and this is the way it's supposed to be. And my question is it the way it's supposed to be? Is this, is what I'm being taught really the truth? And then what is the truth? So if it isn't. And so that became a calling point, because I was born and raised a strong Catholic. And then I evolved to becoming an Episcopalian. And then I evolved to leaving churches altogether. So how did that happen? That happened in that whole spiritual quest that came out of knowing itself. Okay, how did that fit into this whole quest of my relationship, my spiritual relationship? Because I wonder about what life is like after death. And sometimes when I think about, when they talk about eternal life, I'm not so sure I want to live forever. That's an interesting question. Would you want to live forever? I mean, there's a tendency in our incarnate state to want to live forever. So, and then that element kind of led me to where my ministry is at. Okay, here I am on this planet, and so what am I supposed to be doing? And I keep asking that question, and that's an evolutionary question, because what I thought I was supposed to be doing when I left home to join the seminary is a far cry from what I'm doing right now, but it's actually exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
Absolutely. And one more question on that is, how did you make that transition of, now you're on your goals, you're working on, exactly like you said, what is you and what is your ministry? But how did you make that transition? I think that's quite a daunting thing for a lot of people, particularly people maybe in the corporate world already, that do have that drive to do something other than what they're doing now, but don't have quite necessarily the faith in themselves to do it yet. So what was that experience like for you when you made that transition out of the order and just and went on what your goal was? What what was that transition like, and what advice would you give to people when they're trying to do that?
Yes. Well, first of all, what I did is it goes back to being in relationship with yourself, because I was a Franciscan, and then I met my lovely wife, Nancy. And a relationship evolved before I left the order, and being carte blanche with you here. And it was a celibate relationship, but it was a relationship that was evolving. And it's like, and at that time, though, I realized in the order that I was, that this rift was happening, that I was going to have to make a choice. So there was this growing separation between myself and the order. I saw it was inevitable. Now I had two choices: to compromise and stay in the order and just do what they tell me to do, or walk away from it all. And that was a daunting choice you're talking about, because that was, okay, you're on your own. And when I left the order, I had uh, close to $100,000 in Olympic debt. My order didn't even know I had. And so, and if they would have found out about that, they would have probably thrown me out, because, or they would have just, I don't think they would have thrown me out. What they would have done is basically stopped everything, dead in the water. I would have not gone to 92 and 96. That would have not happened. And so that was that piece. But I was in that void, and then Nancy comes into my life. And so this is where the mindset came in. I had to look at myself and really get introspective and say, okay, am I running away from something, or am I running to something? That was a crucial question. And that means being in relationship with yourself. And see, and that's what goes to being in marital relationships. They have that old saying that, there's the form, storm, norm, and perform. So the forming is like the romantic part of it. The storming is when you really get to know each other and all your stuff comes out. And that's human nature. And if you can get through that, that's when you have to take a good hard look at yourself, not your partner. And then comes the norming. When, okay, you kind of find your common ground, and then you can start performing. Life is like that. We go through that with ourselves. And I think when we get in that storm, we got to look in the mirror, nowhere else. You can sit there and blame everybody else, and there's probably blame to go around, but it all starts with yourself. If there is a problem, you're the one that's going to solve it. If there isn't, and so that was what's kind of driving me, and it was driving me in everything I was doing in my relationship with myself. It's not about the Olympics. It's about compromising my existence. It's about compromising who I am. Whether it's the Olympics or not, I was stalemated in the order. And the order was wonderful. Don't get me wrong. There was wonderful friars there. They were very passionate. They were missionaries. And so I have a tremendous respect and love for the Franciscans and for Francis stood for. And it's kind of funny in a way, because when did I create Eco Cuisine? St. Francis was the patron saint of the environment. And what name did I choose? And I did not choose it with that in mind, which is really interesting. And when I look back and look at it, I said, wow, what a choice for a company name.
Wow.
That was really, go ahead, Rio.
I mean, I'm speechless. There's an incredible amount of value in that. I mean, just a huge amount of value. And we need to wrap things up now for the podcast's sake. But, I mean, there's just been an absolute incredible value in this episode. And I thank you so much, Ron, for coming on and sharing that with everybody. Is there a final message that you'd kind of like to... I'll get you to speak on kind of where people can go and find Eco Cuisine and everything in a minute. But is there a final question that you want to just leave people with? Sorry, not a final question. A final statement that you want to leave people with?
Yeah. Be willing to pay the price to live your dream.
Wow.
Be willing to pay the price to live your dream, because there is a price attached to it. The reward is always in proportion to the trial. And some of my most difficult moments, excuse me, when I was really having the roughest time, I would look and I would say, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else, because I love what I'm doing, and I'll get through this and I'll move on to that. But when I'm in that experience, I'm learning from it. I'm connecting more with myself and connecting more with my passion. It all comes out of that, but you got to be willing to pay that price. And there's a price to it. There's a price to entrepreneurship. It's living your dream. But that price is well overshadowed by the joy you get from it. I guess I leave it there.
That couldn't have been said any better. I've been an entrepreneur for over 30 years, shadowing here with Rio, trying to pay it forward, and very, very well put, Ron. Very well put.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm taking a huge amount from this episode for sure. I'm amazed. And so, Ron, just let's finish off with where can people find Eco Cuisine, on the internet, and where can you direct them to you?
Sure. If you just type in eco-cuisine, eco-cuisine, CUISINE.com, just type in Eco Cuisine Vegetarian, because there's different eco cuisines out there for foreign countries in Europe and England. So type eco-cuisine, and then type vegetarian, and then you'll see Eco Cuisine come up at the top in Boulder, Colorado, and just type on it and then link on that, and they'll take you right to the website. And I also have American Natural Foods website too, which is the nonprofit. Just type in American Natural Foods vegetarian.
So yeah, definitely, and we'll put all those descriptions also in. We'll put all those links in the descriptions of the podcast, so people can go straight from this podcast and hear the passion that you speak with about what you do, and go straight to your website. But again, Ron, thanks so much for coming on. We really, really appreciate it. And we'll end it there. We'll end as we always do, Joe. Cheers for now. As always, head over to the Instagram and Facebook at Gen Z Journey, where you can get an inside scoop of what's going on behind the scenes, as well as seeing the exciting guests that are coming on for that week. But above all else, thanks so much for listening. We really appreciate all your participation, and we're excited you're on this journey with us. See you next time.